Many people were shocked weeks back when Square Enix decided to sell off all of their Western IPs and Western studios. This includes IPs like Tomb Raider and Deus Ex, as well as the studios that make them, selling them all for a grand total of about $350. Initially, this was a very puzzling move, but as more and more has come out about the situation, it's all began to make a lot of sense. And you're gonna want to hit that subscribe button because today we talk even more about how Square wants to focus on their Japanese titles, and they shed some light on why they need to sell their Western studios in order to do that. Shared by senior financial analyst David Gibson on Twitter, saying, quote, Crystal Dynamics / IDOS sale was driven by concern that titles would cannibalize the sales of the group, and so it could improve capital efficiency. This is apparently just phase 1, and phase 2 is the diversification of studio capital structure. He then elaborates by saying, quote, phase 2 you say, rising development costs of making games means with 100% owned studios, they need to be selective and concentrated resources, which limits expansion. Phase 2 is another way to be flexible with capital structures, so SE is doing a studio portfolio review. Some studios will remain 100% while others change, equity method or JV, will also look to explore to expand the studio portfolio. Biggest impact is on EU/US studios around large title. We'll be able to allocate resources to mainly Japan titles. So Square is looking to sell stake in studios to others to improve capital efficiency, right when others like Sony etc. are buyers. I would expect Sony, Tencent, Nexon etc. would be interested. Video games of course feature better graphics, animation, and a whole host of other things every generation. It's something that gamers look forward to every time they go and buy new hardware. However, the creation of those games is only getting more expensive, as creating a AAA game gets even more competitive, and players look forward to games that take advantage of that technology. This of course means bigger teams, more technology, and longer development times, all of which spells much more expensive games to create. And it seems that Square Enix wants to focus more so on investing that money on their Japanese titles, which honestly to me sounds good. If you're this invested in Square Enix, you're probably a weeb, and you probably care most about their Japanese titles. I know whenever I'm watching one of their E3s or any one of their presentations, when the Western titles come on, I'm not gonna sit there and pretend that I really care. I'm gonna be real with you, I'm here for the anime and honestly nothing else. And I think that's not an outlandish expectation to have for a Japanese company. This also points to the idea that Square Enix could be setting themselves up to be acquired by a bigger company, some of which mentioned here were companies like Tencent, which I would hope not. However, the much more likely one would be the long-rumored Sony acquisition. My take on this remains firm that I don't want to see anyone acquiring anyone else because quite honestly, I'm tired of it. Though speaking of Square Enix staying afloat, it seems as though Final Fantasy XIV is currently their life jacket, with their MMO division currently doing more in revenue than their HD games division. And that revenue probably symbolizes very big profits, as the MMO division tends to be more profitable per revenue spent than the HD games or mobile games divisions. Now this division is comprised of primarily 3 games: Dragon Quest X, Final Fantasy XI, and Final Fantasy XIV, with the vast majority of that money being Final Fantasy XIV. And while the net sales of their HD games has declined year on year, the sales of the MMO division have been up year on year. Square Enix particularly noting that sales of HD games did not reach the level of the previous year despite the release of multiple new titles. That being said, this isn't all bad news for the HD games division. Final Fantasy XVI, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion should boost the sales of the HD games division by quite a lot. But until then, we'll just have to see where it all leads. Shout out to patron Tilly and the rest of the Ultima community.